What's up, guys? Welcome to The Flip Side, a Get Your Teach On podcast where we break down, share, and challenge flip perspectives and insights on different hot topics in education. I'm joining the studio with Hope and Wade once more, and back on the Flip Side couch today are our good friends LaNesha, Tabb, and Amelia Capotosta, and we're going to be talking about instruction and planning, and it's going to be evidence-based or research-based and with the most effective results. So
I just realized that when I do the intro, I don't introduce you and Wade. I never say who I'm joined by.
How rude.
I know.
I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah, there we go.
No worries.
But we're excited to dive in, and welcome to The Flip Side.
Hey guys, how are you? You doing good?
We're doing great.
well.
The smirk on his face right now tells me
doing
that something.
well, my love.
I don't know what is coming because that smirk.
That smile is dangerous.
That it is a.
every time.
It
I love
When you can see all the front teeth.
correct. I don't even know what's coming.
well, I love these icebreaker or intros to the podcast because we kind of just get to talk about what we want to talk about, and you have no
Exactly.
choice.
Just life.
Yeah, I'm just.
And we have no
I like it
idea
when
what's
Chris does
coming.
it.
Huh?
I like it when Chris
Oh,
does
Chris! I think Chris's are the best.
Well, thanks, guys.
But I do have a question for you, and we've talked about this in the past. I mean, in the past year and a half or so, all of these things have been coming out. I mean, like about Sasquatch, about aliens,
What's even happening?
and this is an ongoing conversation in our
Why
household.
do we have the? I'm taking over intros from now.
No.
I'm taking over the from now
Because
until forever.
I'm
Continue.
I'm curious.
I know the question.
This is just a glimpse
As
into
to-
my life, folks.
I
because
know the question,
Just-
and this has been a car ride conversation.
About aliens, I guarantee.
Many. I know.
It is
1000%.
So, do you think they
1000%.
exist? Yes or no? Why or why not? Just curious.
Okay, first of all.
I believe that
I support all
values are-
opinions of
First of all.
the multiverse.
Uh-huh.
When I was first, it's a miracle we've made it this long
Yeah.
in life together. I mean, obviously it's a God thing because when I first started dating Wade, some clip or video or movie or something was about aliens and it was late at night. And he literally almost cried. He was so afraid. I mean, I am talking like terrified.
Terrified.
And I'm sitting over here like,
I'm trying to be a
know,
supportive friend and not
this was
laugh,
before-
but I'm biting my tongue.
this was back in the day of no feelings are valid.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what are you doing? Why an alien?
Like, under
Aren't
the
those like
covers?
stuffed animals? Like I'm the
Like E.T. or like
Not. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
that was the noise that they made.
Okay.
So now I make that noise and it just makes him.
that's actually.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh! What is
That's
it?
more flipper.
What if the centipedes? What if the centipede takeover of the podcast studio are actually
Okay, but-
alien larvae?
But serious,
aliens,
serious
okay.
question.
that can't be a single.
no,
What do you-
I,
what
no,
do you
I don't
think?
believe in aliens. I do
You
not.
don't believe in aliens at all.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, but here's why I do not believe in aliens.
Tell me why you don't.
Because
I'm not here to convince you. I'm just.
they're just even hate having these conversations. There's no way they could get here. Like, okay, if they're outside of our galaxy, it's going to take light years to arrive here.
How long is a light year?
And can they even live that many light years? Like, nobody can live a light year. What? And there's not black holes that this is only in films where you go through a black hole and are transported to another galaxy.
Science fiction
So
means
how could they get
made up.
here?
I mean, that's a great. I mean, those are valid questions that I don't have the answer to. Christopher, what do you? Where?
Because we know you fully believe.
the
'cause we
only
saw a
aliens
UFO.
Did.
the only aliens I think exist are the aliens in Spice World, where the Spice Girls go through the forest on their tour bus, and this giant UFO flies down. Those are the only real ones to me.
Or
Spice Girls are less.
Zombies 3.
Or yeah, Zombies 3. Yeah, no, this is a ridiculous conversation.
It is
and
not ridiculous.
I'm apologizing to the listeners that are driving to
Nah.
school, ready to teach
But
young minds, and are fed
We
with aliens
did want
right
to
now.
show you real life, and this is
Well, let's go to
literally
Wade's perspective.
a weekly conversation.
Let's go to the flip side.
Well,
Okay.
hang on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We go on the flip side. What is the topic today, though? Real quick, it's
Evidence or research based? Yes. Oh, you're going to use this.
both.
You're
So-
going to use this against us.
I am. So
Research
along with
is a
it.
no.
anyway, I saw it. I saw a UFO one
We
time.
know. We know.
Conway, South Carolina. You've heard the story many of times.
Also,
More times than it.
you saw a
literally-
UFO, and last night in my dream, I
More
was best friends with Claudia from the Toast.
We've heard
in
this
my dream.
story
so
more
it does not
times.
mean it's real.
More times than these teachers are going to hear their.
Anyways,
That's
I was
how
in
many times.
I was in 7th grade. I saw it. Anyway, besides that, how far have we come as a human race since 50 till 2024,
Okay, this
2025?
podcast is not about changing people's minds on.
No, I'm not. But I'm just.
why you believe in it.
That's a lot of the reason of why. Like, we're able to fly. We're able to drive cars. We have technology. We're able to go. All of a
Dinosaurs have
sudden,
turned into chickens, as you told us in one of the last
it's
episodes of the
fact. So,
podcast.
You think they created spaceships?
No,
that
I
can
think
move
I think
faster than the speed of light?
I think some things have crashed here, and we found them, and we reversed engineered them, and there you go. And,
If you can see my face right now,
and
if you're
the
listening.
world, the world is so tiny compared to galaxies and galaxies and galaxies, and you're not telling me that there's a chance of life being somewhere else.
Yeah, Buzz Lightyear out there too, flying around space.
Okay,
Now,
maybe.
And I'm not
here's
saying
where-
it has to be a
Okay,
alien
I'll
walking
change
around.
this decision
So there's a
point
lot of
with this
different points
conversation.
that you can take.
I don't disagree. There might be life elsewhere.
Okay, that's different.
I
That's
don't
okay.
believe
That's
in
an alien.
UFOs because I don't believe they've ever gotten.
That's
that
different.
they would be able to get here.
Oh, for sure. That's different. No. So the question was aliens. So life somewhere else.
and the
that's an
fact that
alien.
like people say on what's that area
Area 51.
that there's aliens there.
There's not aliens anymore because if there were, they would have already fallen.
anyway.
If there are aliens, wouldn't they be on TikTok by now? Like, come on, that's
I knew
ridiculous.
this
Like,
would
they
come-
would definitely,
I
they
knew
definitely
this
would have
would
found
come to
social
the
media by
podcast.
now.
I would love to hear what people
Wi-Fi.
think.
I
Like,
knew
that's
this would come to the
ridiculous.
podcast.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect example of the fact that you can agree to disagree and still be a married couple and thrive and be best friends.
No,
and there's
no. On
nothing
this
wrong with that.
topic, I think we do agree because you believe that there's a possibility of life somewhere else, but not looking like the movies, which I totally agree with that too. So,
But then
Well, I disagree, so that's the flip side.
Final thought. But I'm disagreeing with you because you said you saw a UFO, and that to me.
I would have never believed in UFOs if I did not see one. You've never seen one. You never.
Okay,
I
maybe you saw
it.
an unidentified flying object, but I
That's a
don't think
UFO.
that's alien.
Correct. No, I agree with that.
It was probably the first drone ever. You just saw someone test
Ben and Sam.
piloting the first drone.
1996.
Ben and Sam, where were
Yeah,
you?
that was
Where
someone
were
was
you on
definitely
May
working on a
9th?
drone at that point.
No, it was the size of a water tower. It was huge.
It might have been the actual water tower.
No,
Or-
it wasn't because it was
Or it could have
gone.
been a bug
Okay,
that was
and
just
we're-
right there, or it could have been a floater.
Was
You
not
just
a
now learned
floater.
what floaters are.
Was not a. I know
Could have
what
been
the
a floater.
floaters are. Anyways, let's get
Let's
this
get to the
going.
flip side. All right, you guys, welcome back to the Flip Side Couch. We are so excited to have our amazing friends and colleagues here with us once again, the incredible LaNesha Tabb and Amelia Capotosta. I think we're in the same exact spots as we.
Yes.
This is it. This is where we hang out. I like consistency.
Your
Like,
butt prints are still there.
it's perfect. I feel perfectly situated.
Sorry.
Now, they may have already heard you with the first episode that we did together, but if not, just give them a brief introduction of who you guys are and a little more information about you. Go.
Hey, LaNesha Tabb from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been in education for the past 18 years and super excited to get into this conversation today.
Yes, and Amelia Capotosta from Ohio. So we're kind of in the same, we're in the same realm of the country, same area, bordering states, and I'm excited to be here again. This is awesome. Yeah, and if you did not hear their first episode with us, it was all about a deep dive into the science of reading, whether it is overwhelming teachers or growing students. And so I highly recommend you check it out. It was a really great conversation. And so we're so excited today to once again bring the group chat to the flip side. If you missed it, you missed it. Go back and watch the previous episode. But excited today to talk about our instructional practices as educators and whether those are the either or is the evidence-based or the research-based when it comes to instruction.
Yeah, I think people take very close sides to one or the other of this one.
Yes.
I have done this for 37 years and I know this works. Or I read that this happens and unless I have a why, there's an there. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this comes to light I think it comes to light in any subject area you teach. But we all know, really, we think of like math and literacy. Those are probably the two you see it the most. I think about math and the conversations about, the old school versus the new way and the Common Core and all these different strategies that get an argument on both sides. And I think that truly is where some teachers like evidence-based, I've been doing this for years and this is what works. And then the research comes around, it's like, okay, but we've also seen that this can work in the classroom. Try this new strategy. What does that look like? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think also I definitely want to know the why. Like, I do want to know the why, because I'm a guilty until proven innocent kind of mindset that I'm not going to be all in.
You're the opposite of America.
You're the opposite way of what you really want, but I'm like, nope, until you show me the yes, because I'm like been bamboozled too many times maybe to be the opposite, the optimistic mindset. But I do think, I mean, how we get research is from the evidence of continued success. That's what turns into the research because it's done over and over again. So I do think there is some validity in teachers who say, I have done this since I started teaching. Maybe there's not a name to it because they haven't done the research or published something. The research is published evidence of what has worked, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they haven't done that, but maybe there are things in what people have done over and over again that are working. But I know there is also a whole lot that people are just doing because they were told to do. And I know on the last episode we said that those veteran teachers that have said, we have done this since the school opened in the 1862.
Long time ago.
Take out this same file folder with the transparencies, the overhead, all the things, and we'll do that.
We have our
mailbox magazine, all the things.
The Mimeo
Never in high school wanted to do a prank more than to get those teachers who had the rolls of film for their, because just rolls that they would, unit 1 was on.
So much, yes.
So dump them and
Oh my gosh, how terrible.
How terrible was me sitting there being the thoughts Hope had.
That part.
Literally hitting all things social studies because
I thought it too.
Yeah. Oh my God.
They just rolled it. It's like,
What do you guys mean roll?
The transparency rolls. They had like there was the ones on the sheets.
I don't think we had.
So they had like the sheets. Yeah,
we had like
they had rolls, and it would just keep coming, and it'd be like it would be the previous years.
rolls
It's like a little crank.
Because they're the wet erase, so they
No
just
crank, no rolls.
And
They didn't have the.
It was for their 30
from the
years
last
career.
I would say
all
that's
their notes from every year that had never changed.
Shut up.
100%. That's why they're wet erase, so they stayed. Like they didn't.
No. I know. I'm familiar with the overhead thing.
Yeah.
Ours were just one sheet.
And we had those too. No, this is like
We had
yeah.
on roll.
Yeah,
we had
it
both.
was like,
We had both for sure.
man.
We had
Oh,
both and sheets.
yeah.
I mean, you're just
A lot older than you, apparently.
Get it?
in my 90s.
No way.
But I don't know.
But yeah,
how
I
those
wanted to
never-
do it too.
They
I don't
should
know
buy her too
how
because you
that
just turned
never
40.
I don't know how that ever happened.
40 and 5.
No, but anyway, yes, I do.
Education.
I mean, I do fully agree with that. And LaNesha, I want you, and Chris actually mentioned, has talked about this too. But the other day, again, bringing the group chat to the couch, you introduced me to something that I had not heard about, which was loose and tight.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Which also, every time LaNesha says something, I'm like, did our former principals, like, were they soul sisters or something? Like, what happened? Because everything LaNesha says, I'm like, yep, that's what we said. Yep, that was it. They have a similar foundation. We do agree on most of that.
Yeah, but I do think that when she told me, I was like,
It's powerful.
It makes so many things make so much more sense.
Yeah.
Just to kind of
Yeah.
what you were telling me about.
So essentially, it'd be like maybe a school or a district. They may have a certain set of, I don't know, strategies, curriculum, standards, whatever it is. And the tight part is this is what needs to get done. And we need all kids to arrive here. That's tight. That's not negotiable. That's tight. The loose part is how you get there.
Yeah.
Which is no different than what you've
Why
always
isn't that actually discussed in schools?
And should also be
I
a
thought it
standard.
was.
Why isn't that a standard?
I thought it
that
was.
should be a, we got her.
There it is, Chris. There's the rolls right there. But
See the roll, the little
I
crank.
do see the roll.
And they just keep moving
it'd
it.
be full units.
Yeah.
Must have had like the 2.0 model.
You did.
Maybe.
2.0. Maybe
There
you're,
was no roll on the side. Everything else looked
your
very
school had state funding that year.
Yeah.
They got new.
All they would do would read every word.
So they wouldn't write it in the moment.
No.
Like, my teachers used it as like a doc cam. Like their overhead
Right.
projector was like a doc cam.
We had
They
some-
would
I said we had
write
some
in
of
the
that
moment,
too. Yeah.
and then they would have that sheet, and they would put a new sheet right on, and they would like teach on there.
Depend on the teacher.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, back to this though. But no, it is not discussed in schools. I had actually never even heard of that terminology before you brought it up in our group chat.
Wow.
And I'm like, first of all, for any leader, that's a powerful way to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
Like, again, I mean, of course, I've talked about priorities and prioritizing things, but I love the focus of here is where we don't budge.
Right.
But then here's where you have the flexibility to bring your authentic self and your authentic side and your authentic practices to get those same results.
And that was actually a huge part of my work with one of our Indiana schools this past year.
Yeah.
They got a new curriculum. I believe it was CKLA. And I was talking with the assistant superintendent, and that was the goal. She was like, I want that loose and tight. Like the tight is we're doing CKLA. we're going all in. We're gonna do it with fidelity. Everyone's favorite word.
See, yeah.
I mean, I call it the F word.
Yeah. But she was saying that like that doesn't mean that you have to just literally read it from the manual. It's like, how do you go about executing what this is? So it's still
Got some
CKLA.
flexibility in it.
How
The other
Because I think that the alternative to discussing loose and tight is saying teach this to fidelity.
And I think with what
that's kind of a
hot topic
trigger word.
But I think that's what you just said right there is exactly it. I don't think a lot of administrators explain it well, and I don't think it's relayed to teachers well, because I will go to a district and work with them, and we can't do that. We have to teach this to fidelity, and the admin are back there being like, no, like you can take your teaching style and you can put it in here. When we say fidelity,
or I'm in that.
there's
no,
both.
it
Yes.
is fidelity. And they're getting that from their higher ups, and it's like,
100%.
no, fidelity is this. So it's like kind of the definition of what is
What
that?
is fidelity?
Yes.
There's
What is
no
fidelity?
way it's 100%. That would be ridiculous because you're teaching students who are very different,
literal robots
from classroom to classroom. So if you expect that, that's not what's best for kids ever. So yes, fidelity, which I get as in this is what we're using. We're following this as here. But I would say, I mean, for us, it's like a 80%-ish. If there was those years where it was like new curriculum, all this money was spent on it. So I do understand that perspective from a district side, that if we're putting money into this, we've done the work to vet all the things that hopefully happen in the process, that we want to make sure it's being used in classrooms with kids and kind of track that. But also I think with fidelity, it's like, okay, year one, we're doing it with fidelity. Year two, that goes down from 80% to 60%. Year three, the 60% goes to 40%. Now we're back and we're like, okay, let's try something new. Like the fidelity doesn't like continue.
And you
So that's
also
obviously not
realize
working.
how the resource can be used.
Right.
Like I feel like first year, you're just still learning what this resource is, and you're seeing what works and what doesn't work. I think that's one thing LaNesha and I did, one of our conference sessions we did together, and we've done this with schools a lot. I know all of us have done this with our Indiana schools or other schools we've been in, is to me, shifting from the word fidelity to vertical alignment. So you don't have to have like vertical and horizontal alignment should be where we spend more of our time with the loose and tight conversations instead of fidelity. It's more of these are our non-negotiables. If this is a pre-K through sixth grade school, and we're talking about math, these are the 10 things we are all doing in our math classroom. And then here's where you have the loose ability to make it your own and put your own.
And you can tell we work together so much because I literally was going to bring that up. But then I was going to tie it back to you and all the work that we all do around data, because you can say loose and tight all day long, but if your loose is not getting results.
We talk about let's go there. Let's go there for a couple of minutes, because these are conversations that we have often, and I think this is a big piece of research-based versus evidence-based. And let's even go beyond the curriculum. Because classroom management has been something that we have talked about a lot together as we have worked in, again, schools, but just watching and observing patterns across the nation. And it's so interesting to me how, yes, there's a lot of research that we can read on classroom management and just, students' emotional behavior and all of these components. But then when you're in classrooms and you hear those teachers who have said, well, I've done this for 30 some years but it's not working. And then I think that's frustrating them to then want to place blame on everything, which then where does the blame typically go?
To
the kids. Always to the kids. And then what becomes the heightened issues? Behaviors. And then what we're starting to see is when I'm observing, I'm telling you, this has happened, and I'm curious if you guys have seen these patterns too. I'm observing classrooms, particularly those where they're telling me, I have the top behavior issues in the school. Great. That's the first place I'm going. I want to see exactly what you're talking about, right? And I'm going there. Wade's going there multiple times. And when I tell you that a student speaks out of turn, principal's office. When I tell you when a student twitches around, principal's office. And I'm going, okay, where is the research? Where is the evidence? Where is anything that shows us that this is best practices right here? And I feel like a lot of times, again, when we're not seeing the results, that's clearly not working for you because you're sending the same kid every single day, multiple times a day. This is where evidence to me becomes so powerful, but evidence is only as powerful as we allow it to be. And so I'm like, why are teachers not seeing something's not working? And instead of blaming the kids or the parents or the community and saying, wait, I need to shift my practice. Is this just me? Is this just my soapbox?
No, this is going to take me to a whole tangent, but it reminds me, this is exactly where this concept of evidence versus research rings true to me in my own teaching practice. perfect example. We had a whole podcast about science of reading, but that's a very hot topic thing in science of reading is evidence versus research-based strategies. And there are a lot of people who are like, if there's no research to support it, you shouldn't be doing it. And a perfect example of that is there are certain curriculums, trainings that forever and always will put the emphasis on multisensory learning, being more than just movement, being a tactile thing that you're touching, moving with. And that's something that I can say wholeheartedly, having taught that way for, over 13, 14 years in upper grades and in younger grades. If my students were not moving with it, interacting with it, engaging in it in some way, they were not learning the way they could. And so that's a perfect example. There is not decades of research to support that you need to have this manipulative and this thing with it. But I know for a fact, as a classroom educator working with students, I was able to move students more when there was those items available and I was using those. So my evidence and my scores, my data, seeing students learn, because here's the thing, tying back to behavior, a student would much rather be a behavior problem than a kid who can't read. And so what I would find is if I'm not interacting and engaging them in the classroom and giving them those tools to move with, play with, respond with, they're going to become a behavior problem. And so that becomes a classroom management problem.
I also feel like, and if you disagree, let me know. But I feel like, I know you will. But I truly do feel like you could probably find research, and I'm putting that in air quotes, to support whatever cause that you are wanting to find. Right now, it might be harder to find it, and it might be a little outdated of things. But when you're looking at research, I remember in college, and there'd be something I have to do a paper on for not one of my education courses, and I'm like, I have no interest in this. I'm going to do this. I could find things to support two different sides of that kind of thing. So when we're talking about like, okay, this is research-based, great, but what is the evidence that it's moving kids in classrooms in your school, your classroom, the makeup of kids that you have, the curriculum that you're using to do it? That's going to look very different from Indiana to Florida, Florida to New York, South Carolina to Ohio.
Absolutely.
That is going to look different based on your school.
And to be honest, there are a lot of us, myself included, who aren't even like, I don't know. I don't want to say like with it enough, but like
we're not researching correctly. 100%.
We're not even like in the right mindset because it's like it's so easy to say, oh, it's research based. Okay, but who were the kids that was research?
How lengthy was that study?
How long
was that study? Who did it? What part of the country was it in? Were they in another country? Like there's so many things. It's so easy to find a study and be like, well, research says.
Yeah. Or I read this book and it said to do this. Okay, great. In that one box scenario, how is that going to translate from even second grade to third grade? Third grade to there's so many factors.
And this is a problem in professional development. In conferences, in teacher resources, and professional development books. Who is vetting the research? If you aren't doing it yourself. Because anyone, to your point, can slap, oh, this professional development is research-based. Oh, this resource is research-based.
What are you
And if you are taking it at the sticker of what it says, that's on you. That's on you. Because there are many things out there that I know of in education that is saying research-based, and I know without a shadow of a doubt, it is not research-based. They are slapping a label because they know that with that label, it's going to draw more customers. It's going to draw more consumers. Admin, it's going to draw more followers.
And you can cite all the things. In college, I remember putting my, what is it? The
APA format?
Exactly.
Your bibliography.
Your cited page. I'm like, let me add another. Okay, let me add another. Like, it is so easy to do that. And it's have you done this? Is it working? That's going to really carry you through.
The results. The proven results. So I think that's where, for me, the research is the starting place, no doubt, because it does give the why. But also, I need to see the evidence that research actually works in order for it to be effective for me in my
And also, there's so many variables because what works for me with my students, how I'm presenting it, it can be a great research-based strategy. It's worked for me in my classroom. If you don't do it exactly how I did it with the same group of students, it might not work for Amelia. And it could be great. It could really move students. And maybe if I take Amelia's students, it would work for those students. But unless we're presenting it the exact same way, which is completely unrealistic, that is not going to be.
And listen, I love research. I actually do.
Same.
Oh, so do I. Yeah, absolutely.
You have to get into the habit of using research to inform your practice and help. And it's another lens to look at what you're doing. and weigh it out for yourself. There's been plenty of times where I've read something and it might be an obscure study, but it's like, oh, let me give that a try. And that's very different than, well, I'm doing this because it's research-based. And that's the part that
Right.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, just like you can skew research, or just like you said, applying the strategy to different students, I think it also goes with teachers. Like, I could take you and Wade and I could teach the same lesson, even with the same plan, the same activities, and how we both would deliver that would be so different that it would change the way it was received by the students, right? Good and bad, right? That there'd be certain students who receive it differently from each of us. So that's one of the things I love about our conferences when educators come. I think every single presenter there is very, I would say, like, open to saying repeatedly, you take this and you make it your own. Yeah. No one here is telling you this is the end all only way to teach this way.
Right.
We're telling you these are things that have worked. These are evidence-based, research-based practices that we know move students.
Yeah.
That does not mean it's a copy paste. It is a copy, edit, revise, deliver.
Yeah.
And so,
And I think a lot of people are, again, if I'm just thinking, I want y'all to think about this too. What are the trends that you typically see again in your, are you seeing more research based or are you seeing more evidence based? I feel like what I'm tending to see is, and it depends on the teacher. A lot of times it depends on, again, the location, the administration, so many factors. But I feel like I'm seeing a lot of evidence-based instruction with the fact that their research is their TE.
yeah.
Yes.
The TE is the research. And again, I'm not saying that those curriculum companies have not vetted, but the TE is the research.
Yeah.
Evidence-based is the support, I guess, for why they're doing what they're doing. But then there's no results happening.
Or is it even, it's really not even
why-
evidence-based then. It's more like, you
In
couldn't
their
call that.
mind.
There is no evidence.
Well, and if they're not self-aware enough,
Correct.
because
There's no evidence.
Here's the thing. The problem is not them. The problem is not the instruction. The problem is not the curriculum. The problem is that is the trend right now. The problem is the kids. The problem is the pandemic. The problem is
The blame game.
all of those things are beyond our control. Why are you teaching if you are literally blaming every single thing that you have no control of versus saying, hold on a second, what is it that I can control in this equation, and seeing if there is a shift in outcomes? Because I feel like that is where evidence-based to me is almost per the individual, whether I trust your evidence or not.
It could be.
Because so many people will say evidence-based and they have zero results, but when you ask them why they don't have results, they blame everything else except for the action.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know. That's just, I get very passionate about this because I never will understand why teachers keep doing the same thing.
It's an easy cop out. It's a way to make
With
excuses.
no outcome whatsoever. And then they wonder, why I'm getting miserable in this work. You're getting miserable because you're not seeing your effectiveness, and that is miserable.
Yeah.
To know you're working that hard for no results.
Right.
Like, yeah, I can understand why you would be miserable, but I just feel very passionately because that is one of my biggest frustrations is when I see teachers, even in schools that we've gone into and we've offered them alternatives, right, actively choosing to not do anything. Because you're either actively choosing to do something different or you're actively choosing to not.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you're actively choosing the thing that gets you no results.
We're still complaining.
And I know Amelia says this all the time, and it really, when I think about like either teaching or professional development, what it looks like, research-informed, evidence-based.
Yeah,
Meaning
exactly.
you're using research to say this is the best practice.
Yep.
This has worked here. Evidence-based, meaning this is working for me and I'm seeing consistency of it. And also evidence-based could be the flip side of that. If it's not working, we have to change that. Even if the research said we should do this, if you're doing it X, Y, and Z and it's not working, that's no longer evidence-based for you.
And and you go first. You go.
I feel like I have an example of that.
We're probably gonna say the exact same thing. I think. Like, what is it gonna
Mine's
be?
about writing, but I recently was watching a webinar from someone who has a huge writing program and they do great work, but it was going through the research for like writing strategies. And I too have a writing program, and so mine, the crux of it is student independence. And the reason it's student independence is because the evidence over all of my years has shown me that if I cannot get students to write independently, I'm not going to survive that writing block.
Right.
Because the moment I send them off to write, the first hand's going to go up.
You got 30 hands up.
Exactly. 30 hands up.
Can't teach.
How do you
Correct.
this? And so
The autonomy.
my framework is literally built on independence. Like, get yourself busy so that I can actually teach. And so I'm sitting in the webinar, and one of the research, one of the huge pillars was every student, like, I know a lot of people like to send their kids off to do different things in writing, but the research says every student should really be doing exactly what strategy you just modeled. And I'm like, I hear that in theory, but as a practicing classroom teacher of many years, I can tell you, I've done it that way, and I've sent them off to write. And if immediately, hands are up, kids are done, what do I do next? Can I get on the computer? Other kids are struggling and can't even spell the word. And so when I hear things like that, it's like I hear the research and it makes sense in theory, but the evidence is telling me I have to have another framework in place, and I have to figure out how to use that to inform my instruction. So what I hear is every student needs to practice that strategy. Are they going to be able to do it immediately? In practice, for me, it does not work that way.
Yes.
And so that, research informs.
Exactly.
Evidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that actually what I was going to say is arguably, talking about the flip side, I could argue that there are many instances where evidence-based practices will outperform research-based practices in certain scenarios, because research is research. It's wonderful. And again, it informs us, helps us strive. But how many research studies are done, executed, delivered, collected by people who are not actively or have never been actively in a classroom, right? They're studying students from an outside perspective. And that can be great. On one side, that can be really good because you don't have a skewed view, right? We have a very, we look at the viewpoint being different when you're a classroom teacher. But the other side of that is that's great with that controlled group and environment that you had. Put me in a classroom with 25 students and make it actually work. What does that look like? And so that's where I think arguably if you have the right teacher, the right scenario, and the right results, an evidence-based practice can be more powerful sometimes because it's actually been done. It's actively happened. It's been informed by research. And we've seen movement.
And
we have data, and we have results to back it. That's it.
When you're looking again at results nationwide, or even just in certain to me, it is just so baffling. I mean, people have, because we've had this conversation too. A lot of what our teaching styles are is engagement, and I might do a room transformation, and I might do that to teach my most difficult content. But so many people think, oh, well, it's cute, but there's no results.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, no, you want results? Let me show you results. Yeah. And that's where I'm just, I think, kind of at a loss in, education. And listen, again, the system is broken. Nobody's disagreeing. If you're disagreeing that the system is broken, I think we have bigger issues than this conversation. But
We need you on the flip side.
Come on down.
yeah, but we've got to stop blaming the system for everything.
Right.
Because the lack of results is not just the system's fault. We can control so much more than we give ourselves credit for, especially for people who are finding limited or no results. Put me in any classroom, in any state, in any school. I might not be the best teacher in the school. I might not have the best results. There will be a lot for me to learn, but I guarantee you I will have growth.
Yeah.
Because that's and again, it goes back to even simple practices of the data daddy over here.
Data daddy, who must be a real daddy.
If you are implementing something, but you are not tracking its effectiveness,
Correct.
that's a waste of your time.
And you don't even know.
And you don't
How do you know? How do you know?
If somebody asks you, does it work? I get it.
I'm trying. You're waiting for a benchmark point.
That's
You're like
a
to
waste
see,
of time.
did it work? Did it not work? And then it's too late at that point.
And that's
It
no
really
longer an evidence-based practice.
Yeah.
Because evidence-based has to have evidence.
Tracking isn't difficult.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
And that is not a normal practice. And
No, definitely not.
No, I actually in May went to the Sesame Workshop Gala, which is for Sesame Street and kind of the foundation of how they're building these programs for children. Obviously, very intentional. I mean, to us, it looks like, oh, this is fun with the characters,
Right.
but very intentional for social emotional learning.
Yes.
Building inclusivity and diversity. When they're teaching these foundational skills when it comes to letters, sounds, word, all this is intentionally thought out by their team, their developers, their researchers. They do that first. They have the script, and then they actually have a group of kids, which I had no idea, that they show their different products or work to, and they test it out in this evidence-based kind of work. So they're not just putting this in front of, hey, this is what's worked, we're gonna do this. They're actually having kids, and the kids are like the think tank. So they have these workshops of kids. So one example that I was talking with the people at my table was this video game. And the researchers and developers, they had worked with kids to develop it. It was based on these research-based practices of if a kid does this, but X, Y, and Z all so much, and they put it in front of the kids, and the kids are like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we get, like, they got where it comes, and these are older, like, intermediate age, it doesn't make sense. So using that evidence was huge for them because they completely nixed that product, that game. They were like, it's not gonna work, even though could have easily, like Hope said, slap on the research base because it was. They said that kids need this, this, and this in order to be successful. It didn't work. So just a great example, even outside of education. Well, Sesame Street is education, but of putting it to work with kids is going to be the most powerful.
That also kind of brings out like reflective teaching practices.
Yeah,
I don't think very many schools, if any, put an emphasis on reflective teaching practices. Where I've tried this, we've tried it as a team. I think we plan PLCs and means, we talk about what we're going to do, we plan together, but when do you circle back? What worked, what didn't work? Where's the emphasis on that? Like, where's our meeting where we're, regrouping to decide that didn't work? I think what happens is a lot of times teachers just have those conversations in the hallway in between, but if administration put more of an emphasis on reflective teaching practices, I think we would see movement there as well.
I could talk to that though, because I was at a school that was very much like that.
Yes.
And it was really powerful because, and it went back to what you were saying with vertical alignment.
Yep.
So that was the first part, is we were on the same exact page and we all knew for this quarter, these are the non-negotiables. We're not leaving this quarter without every child hitting whatever it was. And we would work.
They're tight.
That was tight.
They were tight.
And the PLCs became really powerful because we also, and it was annoying at first and everyone was
Very
upset about it. And everyone was like, what? Because our admin gave us one of those nice Excel spreadsheets.
Oh, turns green and red.
It turns green and red. Each teacher's name is by it.
And you
had
can
to
see
enter
all
your
the things.
data.
Yeah.
And before it was like, Miss Smith down there cheating. Look at all that green on her, green on her spreadsheet. She down there. But instead of that, we went to Miss Smith's classroom and we sat down and we watched what Miss Smith was doing and very clearly saw, oh, this is why her kids are performing.
Yeah.
And then we all went back to our classrooms and we started adopting things that she was doing.
Yes.
And all of a sudden our entire school started to move. And so PLC.
So be Miss Smith is what you're saying. Be the Miss Smith.
Basically. And then PLC became a really powerful time. Instead of it just being another meeting, it was like, okay, this is the activity that we're doing, or, divide and conquer, come back. We're looking at the data and we're making decisions based off of that. And it was the most transformative teaching experience I've had in my entire career.
Yeah.
Being aligned, vertically aligned, and then executing with like weekly data points. Was it work? It was, but I could tell you on any given day how many kids still needed to learn what skill.
That's right. Yeah.
They're still working on letters and sounds. Okay, which letters, which sounds?
Yes.
You're right.
How do I know that they're moving? Right. That's how granular we got, and it was.
Yeah, us too. The school we taught at, Pendleton Elementary, we were very much that way. So I mean, boom.
I mean, but I just think about, again, the things, if I reflect back on my career, the things that I did not want to do the most were the most stressful.
Oh,
Yeah.
Quickly.
And we know that in life too, right?
Yes.
It does take consistency. I mean, I never want to go to the gym. Come on. There's not one day that I wake up that I want to go to the gym.
Never.
But
Actually,
I like
it's starting to get better.
the flip side. I like going to the gym.
3:30 a.m. workout.
And this is why LaNesha and I, when Amelia says things like that, we're like, how are we friends with her? How are we friends with her? No, but again, you have to do things consistently, and the things that you don't want to do are going to be the most powerful.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you with the teachers that I have coached how many times I have begged, pleaded, crawled on the ground, offered them anything that I could possibly give them just for them to record a lesson in one.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yes. Which is,
Because going back to reflective teaching practices, Wade will even, he's done this for himself, but now when we go into classrooms, he will just simply draw a rectangle of the classroom shape. And as the teachers, it's the simple things like this. As the teacher's walking around or not, because there's a lot of not.
I'll still do it if they're not.
Yeah, he'll just
be a dot.
But he puts a dot or an X in every place that they were during that lesson. The knowledge of that, because I've done that with myself before, and I've noticed that, especially I had 40 kids at one time in a class. And so that's a lot of people to try to make seen and keep accountable.
Proximity and all the things, yeah.
And so, I recognized I had one side of the room that I always favored, and I nenever made my way over here. Well, what does that mean for what does that mean for them?
Right.
Right. And they're
Even calling on students and the students that you call on and tracking that.
reflective teaching practices, that needs to be a priority in education these days. Because I think if we can start with the reflective awareness, the reflective practices, that would move into effectiveness, and that would move into, again, looking at evidence-based. That could then, if you're seeing things aren't working, then start pulling from that research. So I get the research to the evidence, I get that model,
Right.
But I think if we never get teachers into a reflective state, the research
And how though? Like as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, because there's so many teachers, and I understand, because a lot of us get into this profession because we were the best, or we were that student, or we're very, And so when we get into the teaching position, it's like, I know what I'm doing. Like I'm an excellent teacher. I don't,
Right.
But how do you get people to the point where they even feel like reflective teaching practices.
Well, I think that
are necessary.
that is leadership 101. I think that it has to be leadership.
Yes.
I think that cannot be teacher led, because here's the deal. Teachers already have the most jam-packed schedules
Absolutely.
of any profession. I mean, we know, I can still remember, first couple years of teaching, we have this conversation at PD days all the time when they get an hour for lunch, just how powerful it is to have an hour for lunch. And looking at my husband and, in the business world, like, you get an hour every day? Like, this is unbelievable. Like, this is your life. So we know that their days are already jam-packed. They don't have time to pee, right?
Yep.
But if administrators don't make a priority, and it's not a waste, looked at as a waste of time because you effectively organize that time and give the time, I think it could happen. But I think it has to be, we're not wasting PLCs on stupid updates within the school. I mean, like, being completely honest, how many times do we spend the first 10 minutes of a PLC being like, oh, PTO is going to fund this. That all could be an email, right? So, like, why are we doing that?
And I do agree, but I also disagree with Amelia on that, because from an administrator's point of view,
Yeah.
I thought the same thing as a teacher. I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And I'm texting my besties, all the things, like the side eye of this could have been an email, all the things. Then moving to the coach position, I start seeing a little more
People on
PLCs. If you don't start accepting responsibility for yourself as a teacher,
Yeah.
no one else is going to make you do it.
I agree with that totally.
Like, if I had the
Yeah.
best fitness coach and they were like, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to do it, I'm going to give you all the results. It is up to me to do it. And I think we're sitting with a lot of schools with incredible administrators, and even they are struggling to see the results
yes,
because
yes.
they're not being reflective enough day to day to be like, this is not working, and that's okay, but I need to figure out what is to kind of make the next step. So you kind of have to accept responsibility for yourself because it's on you. And also, guaranteed, if you had great results, you would keep doing what you were doing.
Oh, yeah,
Because
right,
I know there's times that they're like, try this, and I'm like, I know what I did last year, and I got 100% proficient last year. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to integrate some of the things that you're making me do. So I'm going to not be the brat that's doing something completely defiant and different.
Right.
But I know if I had 100% last year proficient, that worked, and I'm going to tweak it for my students, and that's what I did last year. I looked at my students, where they're at, and made the game plan as we were moving. I'm going to do that, but I guarantee you the people who are saying this is not working or that, you don't have the results there. So if you're in a mindset that I don't want to try that because of this or that, you do have the results to prove it, my guess would be probably not.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of times though, even just working with schools, and that's where you probably can argue from the admin side of it, where they're trying to make these things happen.
Yeah.
We're trying to get teachers on board to do this, and there's that reluctancy. But that's where I always come down to. I'm sorry, at some point it's kind of like either you're here to do it, or you're not here to do what's best for kids, and then you got to get out. And I will say that forever and always. I tell my husband all the time, the second you feel like you get an inkling that I'm no longer invested in this to do what's right for kids, you make me quit.
Yeah.
You get me the heck out of education. Because that's not fair, those 30 babies in my classroom year after year, because those are someone else's babies.
That's such a high level of awareness.
It is. It is.
And I wonder if because even when you said leadership, and I was like, oh, but how does that come from leadership without it feeling like a gotcha?
Yeah, 100% right.
And I was like, I don't know how that would go over. And I'm thinking like, well, how did my building get to a place where we were able to be, and that didn't mean people didn't occasionally get in their feelings, because they did.
Which is
But I think when the focus shifted from, we had that icky period of, oh my gosh, we have to put our data in and talk about it every Friday. After so much time went by,
It was the norm.
it was the norm.
Well, because you see results.
And you started.
It's meaningful.
It's meaningful.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it
Compliance.
wasn't personal. It wasn't about your practice. It was about
Our.
kids. It was about these students and how do we move them. And I think you have to go through that uncomfortable period. But like that first phase is like, if your data is not out there, you have to wake up and like you've been saying.
You need that all in mentality. You have to have that all in mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, and I've been on many teams where there's probably like 90% of us on the team, and we're like all in. We're like, let's do this. Let's do. We had reteach and enrich. So we'd look at the standard, we'd look at the skill, we would do a formative assessment, and then we would literally adjust for that afternoon. I'm going to take these kids for this. You're going to take this, and we're going to do that. If they're
And it's
enrichment, they're going to go.
invigorating. The moment you see success, and you're like,
Correct.
okay, this is good.
And that's on board. But then there's always the one that is
Forever and
like
always.
putting literally, they're pumping the brakes on your parade that is moving forward. And you just kind of have to push through and keep.
do. You have to
and it
keep
would be
doing
very easy to be like, you know what? It's just not even worth it, because it's exhausting dealing with that type of person that is just shooting it down, not putting in the work. Maybe they don't have their data in, and you're waiting on making groups, or you're waiting on the discussion, and they're sitting there with an empty spreadsheet, or they're in the PLC, they're putting it in and not even contributing to the conversation. That's on them.
Yeah.
They're going to have to kind of keep doing what you're doing to not focus on the negative. And I think that's a lot in education that The second something doesn't go wrong or something we like, we tend to move away from it when we need to kind of keep pushing forward and persevering if we want to see those results.
I mean, from a leadership perspective, oh, sorry, Wade.
Yeah. It's fun.
Okay. From a leadership perspective, I think that it boils down to number one, which we do not see enough of this in education, communication. No relationship can be successful without communication. And I think that everybody gets so busy that we're just looking at the overall overarching success of the school. No, this is going to require sitting down with each individual teacher and effectively communicating. If they cannot track and see and find their own results, we are giving them the results. And then if from there, we give them an action plan. And from the action plan, we maintain accountability. And from accountability, we have follow through. And then here's where it boils down to. Either a teacher is going to say, "Ooh, yeah, you're right, my results aren't there. I'm going to do everything I can to get them there." Or you're going to have teachers make excuses. You can't fix the teachers who make excuses. No, it's time for them to go, to be honest with you. So by making them, I hate to say this, but here we are. By making them miserable, by holding them accountable and making them miserable, maybe they'll find a different profession. Because if they cannot recognize that if I'm not having results, I am part of this problem, then that is their own issue. I don't think that we can ever get to the individual of how do we get teachers to see. I think it's a leadership that's communicated, that they then decide what they're going to do with that. But then it's up to the leadership to hold those teachers accountable and have that follow through. And if results aren't
and that's okay. If teaching is not for you, that's okay. I think post-pandemic, we have come to, there's so many teacher shortages that we're in this panic that we're like, oh my gosh, we cannot lose this teacher. I would rather hire someone off the street that is willing to put in the work, say, hey, this is what's working, observe, be reflective, all the things as an administrator.
Make changes.
Be flexible, observe other teachers willing to learn than someone that has been there and that is holding this kind of cloud over of, well, what are they going to do? Fire me and not doing what's best for kids? I would rather have someone that's green for that. Yes. But unfortunately, in a lot of schools, there's a lot of people that are in it and they're just staying because they know they're there, which is great. You're filling a room, but is that actually moving kids? My guess would also be not.
Yeah. Wait, you were an ad over there. What were you going to say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, and I think we hear this often too, that it's more than a test score.
Yeah.
It's more than that. Duh, right? But at the end of the day, like, that's
accountability.
That's accountability. And that's what we have to have. And that's how you can prove, that my evidence, I can do whatever I want because it is working inside the class.
That is such a good point.
So
that is because we hear that often too. We're more than a test score. Absolutely. But if I'm having behavioral challenges with one student, I'm also going to track things that I'm trying with that student behavior. Yeah. If I'm having a relationship issue to where I'm recognizing we just are not getting along. Like one of the things that I used to always do, especially when I got to middle school, is I would track my interactions. Every quarter, I would take a week out of my time and I would track my interactions with my kids. And I didn't try to get a lot of detail into it, but I would just track whether it was a negative interaction or a positive interaction. That was eye-opening to me to see, you know what, some of the kids I'm having, I'm not feeling like, I'm not liking them so much right now. I'm having way more negative interactions and I'm not even intentionally trying to have positive interaction. Right. So we're not just talking about test scores. We're not just talking about academics. We're talking about that when you want to be an effective educator, evidence-based practices is for every piece of our classroom. The climate, the culture, the instruction, the academics, the relationship, the teaching kids to work as a team. Everything is an opportunity to have evidence if you're willing to see if it's actually working, right?
And also, going back to what Wade was saying, because I don't know if you were going here, but maybe not, but this is what it made me think. When people are like, I don't care about the test, I don't care about this, I don't care about that, then you don't care about students growing, essentially, when you're saying that. So although, is it ideal that we have a standardized test for kids and it's wasting hours?
Not.
Absolutely, no one in the world would say.
I'm going to prepare them for it if that's not the way they're going to be judged.
Correct. If you don't want your
make sure they're going to kill it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think also going with all of this we talked about too, is that mindset. We talk about certain teachers that aren't on board. What do you do, right?
Yeah.
It's also that mindset. I think this could be a whole episode, but they're all our students. I have taught in schools. I have worked with schools.
You're a school teacher, not a classroom teacher.
We're teachers like, well, those aren't my kids. They're all your kids. If you teach in school, every one of these kids is your kid, and you should be invested in their growth, whether it's in the hallway, the classroom. It just drives me crazy. And I've worked with schools where I'm like, okay, ideally we get to the point where we want to track data, we want to see growth. We're swapping students, right? This time, our protected time.
That's what I did at Tabb Elementary School. I taught, we were level reading teachers. And so I had third grade students, fourth grade students, fifth grade students, and 2 sixth grade students in my reading class.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that.
Because we're targeting a skill. We're using data to track and target. And the problem is you have teachers, and I've flat out worked with teachers who say these things, and I've, as a classroom teacher, and then I've worked as, instructional coaches or, different positions where you'll have teachers look at you and be like, that's not my class. Yes, it is. If you teach this at the school, those students, you are responsible for those students.
Mad.
Oh, it's infuriating. But I bet you we will get some responses on here. I'm sure there's some listeners who have that feeling. I mean, that's what the flip side's all about. But I can guarantee some people disagree with us when we say that. But I think that is a huge part of having evidence-based practices, vertically aligned and horizontally aligned, is we're all doing this together.
Side note, I love that Amelia shares my love for saying the flip side as many times as possible on the podcast. It brings me so much joy.
I said it should be a coffee shot game.
Yeah, exactly. Sip me your coffee, because every time you say it, I'm like, ooh.
Take an espresso.
I think a good challenge to a takeaway from this, if this is, and you can feel any kind of way that you want. That's what, again, it's about having the conversations.
Yeah.
If the conversations are never brought to the table, then there can be no movement in any direction. But I think a good challenge is to look at your results. Yeah. And to choose the thing that you're having the least amount of results in. And then to do a practice evaluation. Yeah. What am I practicing every day? Because this isn't just one lesson one time. Right. In this content area, choose your weakest content area. What am I doing every day, every lesson? What are my practices? And ask yourself why.
Right.
Why are you doing that practice? Because if the answer is not because it yields results, then it is time to start shifting some of those practices and trying. And then that's where let's tap into some research. Okay, maybe I'm out of strategies, right? Let me go to what research tells me. Let me see if I can pull from research and start aligning my practices to things that have been proven. And now let me give those a solid 6-8 weeks. Every lesson, every time. And then I'm going to have another practice evaluation and say, let me see, did I have growth? Because if I had growth, then I'm moving in the right direction. Right. If not, then I've got to keep trying things until I find something that works. I promise you won't have to try many times if you are tapping into best practices, research-based instruction as your, again, launching pad for your evidence. But if you're not tracking the effectiveness of it, then it can't be evidence.
And going off of some of the things we talked about, I mean, do you think sometimes, and this is just maybe I'm spur of the moment thinking this, I think some of the schools where they have teachers teach with fidelity are hand tying their teachers to be able to do reflective teaching practices.
Absolutely.
If I'm being told I have to teach this curriculum, this is a one.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's how I am. That's how I was. I was like, you told me that's not my fault.
It's not my fault.
And
You're the
that's also
opposite.
on the teacher again, because you're using that as an excuse and a barrier for you. So you can't say, oh, my principal said this, my district said this. You are the teacher of your classroom. So even though you're being told these things, you know what's best for your kid.
That's a difficult position for a lot of
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like,
So
if you tell me to do that, and if you come and observe me, and I'm not doing it, that's my job, that's my livelihood, that's my salary, that's my family.
I think it comes down to personality, to what you're saying.
And if it doesn't work, and it's proven it doesn't work, guess who's in trouble and who's fired? Probably not me.
Right.
It's that person over there.
Right. Yeah. But if you go in with that mentality for everything, that I am just going to do it, like you're going to still do it with fidelity. You're going to use the curriculum. You're going to do those things. But if you go into the mindset that you're first to say the blame of, oh, well, it's because I'm doing this. Oh, it's because I'm doing this. Well, what are you doing with that to make the most of what you have for there? What are you doing with that resource to do that? Because I think a lot of teachers, it's easy to place blame on, well, I'm having to do this, so I'm just going to check out and not even put the effort in. If I know I have to do this, I'm going to do the best I can with this. Now, there may be a limit that I could go, but I'm not going to be first to put a blame on, oh, well, you said to do this, or you told me I need to do this, because you still are responsible for those kids at the end of the day. And if you're in it for the right reason, then you're going to do that. If you're in it because you're just filling a room, then
I think that's so much as personality based, because there are rule followers and there are rebels.
Yeah, right.
And I've been known to be a little of both.
Yeah.
You know.
Because in life, I am the biggest rule follower you will ever meet. Like, you can ask Wade, it makes me hyperventilate to be stepped outside of a seating zone that I'm supposed to be in. Like,
Me too.
but when it comes to my kids, I'm gonna do what's best. I'm gonna rebel all day.
Rebel.
I'm gonna do what's best, and as long as it's backed in research and it's evidence based. But also, I think that if you're also listening to this podcast and you're like, I'm the best teacher in my building, do an evaluation of your practices. Because if nothing else, you're going to be ensured that you are in fact the best teacher in the building because you have results. And then when somebody comes and questions you have those results.
Or also grow your circle. Yeah, grow your circle. If you're the best teacher,
That's what I was going to say.
I say if you're the best teacher in your building, grow your circle. I don't want to be in a room where I'm the best. I want to be in a room where people are around me that are better than what I do.
Also, there's no reality where you are the best in every single area of instruction and you may be the best in classroom management in your building. You may be the best math small group. You may have that down. There are other things that other people, I promise you, are doing better that you can learn from and grow.
Put yourself in that position to receive that. 'Cause so many years in my career, I would be so hungry for an evaluation that would actually give me something that I get.
Give me some actual.
And then a lot of times it'd be like, oh, that was great. Like, maybe a tip or two, but like, I really was hungry for that, like, transformative thing that could take it to the next level. And I didn't often get it. And so I'm always kind of looking for that and just putting yourself in the position to be humble enough to accept that is, maybe that's the kind of the gateway to what we're talking about. Like being reflective. If you're always in a position of how can I be better, then you're automatically going to be reflective. Yeah. Because you're trying to figure out how to get better. Right. But
I also think what I just said about that all four of you like jumped when I said that about the career. I mean, literally all four of you. So I think our next episode is going to be fidelity or freestyle. Where we at on this one? We're going to have some
the chaos of freestyle.
That's a good
or the
one. That's
that. But I think I can speak for all of us. This is one of my favorite conversations, actually, that we've had yet. But thank you so much, LaNesha and Amelia, for joining us. Absolutely. If they don't follow you yet, what are you guys waiting for? Let them know where they can follow you guys for more resources and inspiration.
Yeah. My website is LaNeshaTabb.com, and I'm on Instagram at LaNesha_Tabb.
Awesome. My website is AmeliaCapotosta.com, and I'm on Instagram, Amelia Capotosta.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in another episode of The Flip Side. New episodes every Monday if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on your favorite streaming service. We will see you next Monday with an all-new episode. And make sure you listen to the end of the credits on some episodes for some special extra features or maybe interviews. You never know. So we'll see you guys next time, and we'll catch you on the
flip side. Bye.
See ya.